So, it's very exciting news that we work together now.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is.
That's amazing. I don't know how I stole you away from Escrow. So, first question. Did you always think you'd be in real estate in some capacity? Is that something you always had a dream for?
No, never.
No?
Never ever.
What was your dream path if it wasn't this real estate stuff?
Well, when I was younger, I was very into music. I was even thinking about accounting because I love numbers, nursing because I really care about people, and I was also thinking about becoming an attorney because I loved law and rules.
Wow. It's pretty special that you and I came together, especially considering that, one, I don't necessarily love numbers.
Yes.
Two, I'm not especially great at following rules. And three, I definitely am not known for my musical talent. Well, I've gotten better since then, though. I'm better with numbers now.
Yeah.
I'm better with rules, and musically, I'm okay.
Yes.
Shout out to one rap song, follow, for. So we gotta do a duet.
Yeah.
Would you?
No.
My love. I feel like Norwegians are so good at like the singing and stuff like that, and then I can come in with like a little bit more the rap, the hip hop. It could be fun.
Sure.
So stay tuned. We have a song coming and it's being released. It's gonna be called Scandinavian Hip Hop Market Update. Okay, stay tuned. So, my love, I want to ask you because before you joined Welch Estates as operational manager and my manager, truly, keeping me in check, you did 5 years in escrow, and so you've worked on over 1,000 transactions.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is exceptional because most realtors don't even see 1,000 transactions or anywhere close in a 20-year career.
Sure.
So to be able to say that you've seen that many is pretty incredible. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned from talking to that many people, being in that many transactions?
I would probably say a different type of customer service, because I think in real estate transactions, and especially in escrow is kind of like the black hole, right?
Yeah.
Everything falls into it, and everything comes to us, and especially if things are really messy or very stressful, which it very often is for both sellers and buyers. It's so important that escrow is calm, very what's the word I'm looking for?
I'll call it like a safe haven.
Yes, exactly.
Safe space, yeah.
Where they can come and kind of vent if they need to, and then we're figuring out the solutions that needs to be taken or the solutions that needs to be done, and then take the next step, and then have like that overview of what the next steps are. I think that's the biggest.
That's one thing that you do so well, is that you're such a great active listener, and you never overreact to a situation. You let all of the information come in. You done? Here's what I think might be the best next steps.
Yeah.
You never let the sky fall.
No.
And in real estate, a lot of the times people have their number one resource or investment in real estate, like all their money, or it's like a probate, and they're working through a super hard time themselves with no idea what to do. So it's not if there might be stress, it's when there is stress.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you react?
Exactly, because there's always so many emotions involved. It's, sometimes the transaction can be only numbers, but then other times, most cases in residential, there's so many emotions to it, right? There could be multiple sellers and certain sellers not wanting to sell or having to sell your childhood home, or like all these different things. And I think especially for sellers, that could be very emotional and stressful. And then let's say on top of that also you're having an agent that might not be able to follow through with what you need for that transaction or what you need of that emotional support, which can happen too. Escrow kind of falls in naturally in a way because we're the middle of it all, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And escrow often gets blamed for everything.
Very
but
true.
also escrow becomes sometimes the babysitter of the transactions.
True.
I know there's been moments where I'm like, we're in escrow, here we go. And then you're like, bon voyage.
That
But-
happens very often.
But it's so important to not be that way, and like you said, to communicate well. That's why I'm so grateful that you're now part of our team. So you have all of the knowledge, the same listening skills, and yet, you know, you understand how important that communication is to the whole transaction. So I think communication is everything. With your sellers, keeping them informed, with escrow, so everyone's on the same page.
Yes.
And of course, escrow is the centerpiece to it all of the communication. All the communication, all the financials.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you gotta really keep escrow in the center of that, right?
Yes.
And escrow handles all the rules. Without escrow, it'd be the Wild West. You know what I mean? They send money, money's missing, everyone's getting sued, here. But escrow's like, okay, it goes here. Oh, where would you like to head? Here we go. You're like an airport.
Yeah, we are.
Escrow's like LAX. Like without that, planes are just.
Pretty much.
So I feel definitely super lucky to have you on
Oh,
our team.
thank you.
My love, what would you say is, let's say, what's the wildest story that you have from an escrow experience? Something that could help sellers to maybe not make any of this sort of mistakes?
I don't know if I would say it's the wildest, but I would probably say either it will have to have something to do with death. Where it could be either, number one, somebody thinks they own a property and they don't.
Can't sell something you don't know.
No. Or number two could be somebody signing for somebody who's dead.
Oh, wow.
That's a big no, that's a red flag.
Wow, yeah, that's definitely a tough one. You're like, he didn't show up to the notary, ever.
Well, usually the contracts, right, are not,
Yeah.
they're not notarized. Like, you don't check, actually, at least escrow standpoint, or standpoint, we receive a contract with a name, a signature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if that signature is basically the same as the name, we don't really have a way to understand that that's a different person, maybe after we've opened escrow and we start having communication with the person and understanding, why is the email address different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this a woman instead of a man I'm talking to? Or maybe it could go as far as to when we go to notarize, because some people has very similar names, right? Like father and son could have basically the identical name. So all of those things.
I have my dad's middle name.
Right?
Or no, my middle name is my dad's name.
Yeah.
Michael what? Yeah, I probably couldn't get away with using my dad's driver's license, so I wouldn't.
No.
But I do have a few silvers coming in, a few grays, so one day I'll have a full head of platinum hair.
Yeah.
It'll be really exciting.
Also, I think like with debts, if somebody passes away during an escrow, usually if a seller passes away, it's definitely delaying escrow, but usually the escrow will move forward. It's just going to be kind of on hold until things are resolved. But if a buyer passes away, it gets a little bit more complicated.
Because then they have to...
Especially if there's a loan involved.
Yeah, because you have to proceed with the contract, but then whoever inherits it could be family.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if there's no probate set up, let's just say.
And what if they don't qualify for the loan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could get tricky on
It
that
gets super
side.
tricky. So, obviously there's a lot that can go bad. And unfortunately, people just kind of start and they don't necessarily have all their ducks in a line.
Mm.
What's the biggest piece of advice you would have for a seller so that they don't fall into any of these mistakes?
Just complete the paperwork as soon as you receive it. Any documents that needs to be filled out, completed, signed from Escrow. As long as everything looks good to you and you're comfortable with signing and completing it all, just complete it as soon as possible, because that's the one thing that with the sellers is there could pop up things on them throughout the escrow. And the issue with that is when escrow need to request demands for it, sometimes for certain demands it could be up to 3 weeks or 10 to 15, 30 business days for certain.
Yeah.
Just for certain things. So it's always really important to just complete everything as soon as possible. You don't want to delay it.
Yeah. Obviously, I've been on both sides of an escrow, and I've definitely had buyers that have, like, it'll be one little thing that, like, the lender they haven't figured out with their lender about, like, one small baby closing cost, but they're like, I don't want to do any of the paperwork until we get that sorted out. And especially for first-time home buyers, it's really hard because they don't know what they don't know. And so I'm like, no, keep filling things out as we go, and we'll get this sorted out. I was like, this is why we have timelines, so that we'll get all of this figured out. I was like, but you have to take every little step along the way. Otherwise, like, it finally got filled out, and now we got to go back to day one, start again. And in a competitive real estate market, you don't always have 45 days to, let's just figure it out.
No, the same thing with buyers too. Like, there's a lot of information that escrow needs from the buyers to be able to work with the lender, because there's information that escrow and lender needs to be on the same page with. So for the buyers too, it's super important that they complete all their paperwork as soon as possible, because lender's gonna ask escrow, hey, we need this, and I'm like, your buyer is MIA.
Yeah.
I don't have the information, unfortunately.
Yeah. So that was maybe the one thing that we learned in, like, American schools is to, like, just follow directions. I don't know how Norwegian school was. I mean, not that I was, the star student until my senior year, and I was like, if I'm gonna go to college, I might as well. I might have to show up. And then I got a 4.0 my senior year of high school. So, fun fact. Yeah, followed you. But I think you got 4.0 all 4 years, huh?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Pretty close?
Pretty close. I think it was a little bit harder when I got to the US.
Oh, to the US. Yeah, that was a big step.
Yeah.
So you came to the US in 19, and you jumped
20.
At 20.
Yeah.
Okay, and how was that adjustment? Because tell everyone where you're from. What is it, like, where are you from?
Well, I was born and raised in Norway, and I moved to the US when I was 20. And I came here and I started studying, and I think the biggest challenge
You started nursing. You were studying for nursing. And
I actually started in business.
Oh, okay.
Just like business administration, management. That's kind of like the average field, I guess, you could jump into to kind of figure out what you feel for. Because school is very different from here in Norway. And started out with that. It was okay. I think some of the classes were definitely pretty challenging to me. Just because you're now doing all of the schooling in a different language. And even though English is our second language, it's different, right? You feel like you're learning 2 new languages at the same time.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing like accounting, and when I transitioned into doing nursing, that was definitely very big, because it was like a whole another language of English to me that I had to learn, and a lot of the names for body parts, muscles, or the physiology or the physiological part was that was hard.
Wait, is anatomy different in Norwegian than it is in American than English?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so confusing.
Yes.
No way. Even medical terms?
Yeah, absolutely.
So first you have to learn business terms in another language.
Yes.
Because it is its own language.
Yes.
Like, just business is its own language, medical is its own language, and then it's one of each, like a Norwegian business, Norwegian medical.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh my, that's so confusing. Oh my gosh. I can imagine that would be tough.
Yeah, it was pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're like quadrilingual, like 5 languages.
I don't know about that, but I was definitely studying 24/7, and yeah, it was rough. Definitely first 2 years for sure. Yeah.
And after those 2 years is when you kind of pivoted and sort of got into real estate, more or less?
Yeah, it's when COVID hit.
COVID hit, okay.
The refi started as just woo.
Yeah, I mean, COVID market, it changed real estate, you know, it definitely, because that's the same time that I got into real estate. And I just remember, in a lot of ways, like, deals were falling from the sky. It was like real estate was the hottest topic in the world. You know, when interest rates are 3%, you know, you can get $1 million house and the monthly payment is like $2,500, $3,000. It's like everyone under the sun wanted to be a homeowner.
Yes.
And I think you and I were both introduced into real estate in that time where it was a pseudo market, right? It was like a fake market. Like what was happening was not the reality of people that have been in the market for 30 or 40 years, right? So we were kind of introduced in like this hyperactive market. You know, how do you think that shaped your introduction to real estate, like when you first got in?
I think, honestly, I think it was great because I felt like I just got thrown into it and had to learn and just learn everything so much more quicker and faster because there was no time to waste, right? And like there was, you know, you would fail, you would learn, you would try, and like all these things, and I remember it was just so busy, you just had to figure it out, right? And what you couldn't figure out or the things you didn't understand, right, that's when you go back and like ask questions and all of that. But I think for me it was so good because I really got to learn so much in such a short time. So maybe what people would learn over, let's say 2 years, I learned maybe in, you know, 6 to 10 months and just got like thrown information into it. And at that point too, you see so much too because there's so many things coming in and you're working basically double shift, right? Monday to Friday. So you just got so many hours in compared to when it probably would not be a market like that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that probably
It was the same for me too, right? Like when I first got into real estate, first of all, I had another full-time profession, right? I had Built by Brian, and I had a full roster of clients and personal training. And then I got brought into real estate because two great mentors believed in me, that my hard work and good ethics, that I would do well in real estate. So I got my license, and then in my first 3 months, I had 3 deals. I was like, I mean, granted, I had help to get those, you know, get those deals, and they were walking me through the escrow, so it's not like I was just like knew it all, because in real estate you definitely don't know it all. You're always learning every day. So same thing, it was, and I think that's the one thing with me is that I'm very coachable, and I keep a very much open mind. And so I walked in, I was like, you guys believed in me, that's why I'm here. I don't know anything. It's not like I was determined, like it wasn't like in my own fate to do real estate, but they believed in me, so I started. And you know, fortunately, I love to work with people. I think that's the one main thing. And so when I got brought into real estate, I was like, okay, for the moments that I'm doing real estate, I'm going to be all in on it. And so, first 3 months, I had those 3 deals from like all different sources too, like an open house. I met a great family. From my mentors, they introduced me to some buyers. And then from my own sphere or like personal training clients, they bought with me too. And so I learned so much in those first 90 days. But what people, at least outside of real estate, don't understand is like after, well, maybe they do. That's no disrespect to to people out there. Is right after that COVID market became one of the hardest markets and worst markets in 30 years. And of course, as a realtor, we don't know that. Like we don't know. Well, we're here. Deals are falling from the sky. And then like literally 1 year later was the slowest and worst year in 30 years. Because people got so used to that 3% interest rate. And then 12 months later, it was like at 6%. People were like, 6%? Like, can you? And I'm like, my parents had like 15% interest rate before. You're good. But again, it was such a challenging market. Did you feel the challenges of that market too? Because I'm sure you were right in that mix too.
Not really, honestly. No, not really. not to the same level. I think the only thing that I really felt was just not as busy, less hours to work. Less hours to work means like you're not working double shift or in the weekends. Basically, you're working a regular full-time job, right? But in escrow, there's always just so many opportunities and sources for business to come in. Usually, if you're an independent, you can do refis, right?
Yeah.
And I think also when I was at in-house escrow, non-independent escrow company, there was just so many deals coming in from so many different agents in general. That was never really a problem. So I was very fortunate where I was throughout my career in escrow.
That's good.
Yeah.
See, people might not understand that real estate hours are so different,
Yeah.
right? Like the normal 9 to 5, like, all right, you clean up your eyes, you go to work at 9, you're like 5 more minutes to 5, and as soon as 5 hits, or if you're a hard worker, you're leaving at 5:15, but you're out and you're like, oh my, forget about that job, I'm out. But not in real estate. Because in real estate, it's 24/7, 365.
Yes.
And it's wherever you are, you could be a deal happening. When I was in Norway with you, I brought a deal together, and it was like calling the buyers, just like their 1 p.m. was like my 1 a.m. I was like, hi, how are you guys? And so it's just the wildest thing, and it's a luxury.
It is.
At least on this side of this side of real estate.
For sure.
I think for you, what we witnessed with you working in escrow, and me watching you work these 100-hour weeks, where you're working, you're rushing to work at 7 a.m. You're not leaving till 7 p.m. 12 hours a day. The weekend was coming around. Again, it was like you're working from 10 to 10. And it was, to me, it was heartbreaking to watch, right? Because no human should work at that capacity, and it doesn't matter what the money is.
No.
Right? No one should work in that way, because real true success is having a well-rounded life where all of your important things are being taken care of. So yes, business and money and stuff like that should play an important role in your life, because life costs money, right? And if you want to have the family, if you want to be able to have animals, you want to have a roof over your head, it does require that bucket. But also it's strong relationships too, right? Like being able to spend quality time with each other to build. And then you have your own health, right? Your own health, you got to take care of your own self. Outside of relationships, you got to take care of yourself and focus on your mind, giving it rest. You focus on your spirit, giving it attention, and focusing on your body and putting in, work and how you're eating. So it's all of those important things. So, that's the one thing too that I think a lot of people in the hustle culture or real estate culture, because it is a hustle culture, is they fall victim to that, right? Where they're like, I did it all. I made $1 million and I have no relationships. My wife, this and that. I gained 60 pounds. I'm like, bro, that is not success.
Yes.
That I wouldn't trade that for that life.
No.
And I think that's just the craziest thing too. So, when you left escrow and came to this business, I think it's so that we can do all of it together, right? We keep each other in check. A lot of the times I can be a lot and you can help me to reel it back in. Yeah. And I think that's really important that we have that sort of balance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's why you're the greatest addition to this team.
Yes.